Welcome to Consumption, the Double Delight, right here on ET. Now, the Union Cabinet has approved salary hikes for central government staff. The average rise is, of course, going to be between 20 to 25%. These hikes will be applicable for pensioners as well. But remember, in some other landmark decision today, the government has also decided to allow shops, malls, banks, malls, IT firms and other establishments to open and shut at their own convenience, which means it will soon be possible to walk across a mall even at midnight to do some of the business. So India will indeed be working round the clock. The last mile connectivity, of course, will rest with the states. This is a power-packed lineup that we have for you, a move that will first help you understand the money that's going to be put in the pockets of government employees to begin with, and a corollary effect it's going to have on the impact or on the private sector, and of course another move that will extract more money out of your pocket. And who better than Naushad, Forbes President, CII, Aditi, Nayar, Senior Economist at ICRA. We've got Govind Srikhande, a very special guest who joins us in Mumbai from Shoppers Stop, and of course Amit, Jatia of Westlife Development, Sriram, Khattar of DLF, and our very own consulting editor, Maithili Basnura. Thank you, each one of you, for being with us. Let us really first begin with the big picture, and that is indeed putting more money in the pockets of government employees. Aditi, because you're the economist on the show and you understand some amount of macro picture and how that's going to change, I must ask you a very quick question. Does the move today change the budget mathematics? How does this alter the macro picture to begin with? Aditi, could you hear me? What is going to be the impact of this move on the macro picture?
Yeah, sorry about that. As far as the pay commission is concerned, the recommendations have been accepted by the government, and broadly it works out to about 1 lakh crore for 1 crore families. So 1 lakh per family extra coming in as far as central government employees and pensioners are concerned. So certainly it is going to boost consumption. The arrears are going to be for a far shorter period of time than what we would have had for the previous pay commission. So I think that's going to limit the kind of sectors that are going to see a very big uptake as far as demand is concerned. I think it's going to be more moderately sized, ticket sized items, and also services would stand to benefit. So in terms of the growth impact, definitely we will continue to see a consumption led growth in FY17. I think one interesting thing that will happen because of this is that we're going to find that GVA growth and volume growth is going to be closer or more aligned in FY17 than what it was in FY16. And as far as inflation is concerned, this does pose a modest risk, more so for services than manufactured goods, because capacity utilization is fairly moderate in many sectors as far as the manufacturing sector is concerned. But on the services side, I think this does pose a modest risk, because at the end of the day, most services cannot be imported, and it is going to be a bit of a binding constraint.
Fair point indeed. A binding constraint and a little bit of an upside risk as far as inflation is concerned. But hold your thoughts there, and let's get in the CII president at this stage, Mr. Naushad Forbes, who joins us also on ET now. Thank you very much for being with us. The 7th pay panel finally gets the government nod its approval. But what does this really do to the macro math as far as the government is concerned, and also its own plans to keep pumping in investments into the infrastructure space with a view, of course, to crowd in private investment? How does all of that really change, or do you believe it's going to be changed in the first place?
So, we obviously have concerns in industry about the impact of the pay commission award as it gets implemented. It's been announced for a long time now, so we knew it was coming, so it's not a surprise. But when it actually starts flowing through into the economy, there will be two things that happen. The first thing that will happen is, by the way, that it will show actually a positive contribution to economic growth. But that's a matter of accounting, because the way in which government output is calculated, it's calculated on the basis of how much you spend on it. So if you spend more on it by paying people more, it will show a positive contribution to economic growth. But that's an accounting issue more than anything else. The more important issue is indeed the connection between pay awards and productivity. In our companies, if we increase pay beyond productivity increases, at some point in time you're going to be out of business. It's as simple as that. Productivity and pay has to go hand in hand. If they do not go hand in hand, it's an iron law of economics. If they do not go hand in hand, at some point in time, something's going to give, and what's going to give is the health of the company. In the case of the government, governments do not go out of business. So they have the ability to award pay increases without necessarily seeing an increase in productivity. We hope that many of the initiatives that have been announced by this government that are aimed at making the government more effective, whether it's the ease of doing business or some of the new projects to foster entrepreneurship or to foster social inclusion, we hope that these will have the right kind of effectiveness indicators built in, such that the government is overall also more productive, and this pay award ends up being something that we can indeed afford as a country.
All right, I do want to take this to the consumption story as well, and all that money that is being put in is also being taken out because you have so many more avenues to spend. I think the government has brought in this Enabling Model Shops and Establishment Act. Let's go across to two people, or in fact three people, who are going to enable us to buy a lot more. Mr. Sriram Khattar, Mr. Amit Jatia, and of course Mr. Govind Srikhande. Mr. Khattar, if I may pose the same question to you, the fact that salaries have been hiked as far as the government employees is concerned, and it is going to have a lag impact on the private sector salaries, but the fact that there is an enabling policy, there is a model act in which aimed at really boosting consumption, how do the two really come together as far as boosting consumption is concerned? Mr. Khattar.
Yeah, I think the boost in consumption will definitely take place. I think it'll, as far as the retail business is concerned, I think it'll have a two-pronged impact. One will be the pent-up demand and the one-time payments which the employees will get, and of course everyone likes to spend once there is a sort of a windfall that comes their way, which happens whenever the pay commission takes place, and therefore they would like to consume, and therefore the retail business should do well. The second impact would be because of the increased salary, their disposable incomes will go up, which will definitely boost the consumption levels and the retail. For DLF, the retail malls that we have are in the national capital region, where there is a significant number of government employees, and it is definitely going to be good for our business in the coming months and on a regular basis thereafter.
Fair point indeed. On a regular basis thereafter, it is going to be good for businesses going forward. I'm wondering if I can go back to Mr. Govind Srikhande and Mr. Amit Jatia, and if we'll be able to fix their audio there. Okay, we can't for the timing, and so I'm going to take this across to Aditi, Nayar. And Aditi, the aim of this policy that we just spoke about is really to boost consumption, and one of the largest players in that space, DLF Rental, says that they expect good business. It's good news for retailers. What about the good news for government? Because, the revenue that comes via taxes is also going to go up, or do you believe that's the impact is only going to be very marginal there?
I think we'll really have to wait and see how many establishments actually want to be open 24/7. Is it really going to be profitable in all geographies for them to be able to do that? I think it's going to be a very mixed trend. Perhaps in some metros we would expect a good impact of this relaxation, but maybe not everywhere. So I think it's going to be a little bit difficult at this point in time to really gauge what the tax windfall for the central and state governments is going to be.
All right, Mr. Govind Srikhande, I'm so glad your audio is finally clear, and I want you to come in on two aspects of this move. The policy that has been announced, it's enabling in nature, and I know the last mile does lie with the states. I'm going to talk to you about in just a bit. If you can hear me, can you hear me? Can I go across to him, please? Okay, we can't right now. Okay, Mr. Khattar, if I may continue the discussion with you, you said it's great news for retailers, but what sort of an impact do you assess on the whole consumption pie? Which sectors of consumption do you see or believe or expect to get maximum fillip? Which sector specifically, Mr. Khattar?
You see, the thing is that we are now slowly approaching the festive season, where the consumption is more on the disposable and one-time items which people buy for themselves and for their households. And I think that has a lot to do with the businesses that we have. And therefore, we are quite bullish on the increase that will take place in the festive season that's going to come shortly.
All right, festive season that's going to come shortly. But Aditi, the point that you were raising, and I think that's a very important point that you just raised, you wonder who is going to be willing and who would want to keep their businesses open 24/7. Can we please fix the audio with Mr. Govind Srikhande, because I do want to get him into this discussion and talk to him about the big picture that's really coming in. Aditi, which sectors do you think are going to be the big beneficiary of this move? I know enabling policy, states will take a call, but which sectors will be the big beneficiaries of this move?
See, in terms of 24/7, I mean, the first thing that I can obviously think of that people would want to be open 24/7 is chemists, and you know, even now there are very few chemists that are actually open late at night. So that is somewhere that the consumers, I'm sure, would be definitely very happy if you know, other basic items, you know, some kind of groceries. So from the consumer's point of view, I think this is what they would definitely like to see open. Other sectors which I think could benefit from later opening hours would include perhaps you know, retail and other sectors which are apparels, which are focused on a younger population. I think there perhaps there would be a more sustained footfalls even during the later hours than perhaps in many of the other sectors, which definitely may see a seasonal impact like the festive season impact that was just mentioned. But you know, maybe even movie halls, some sectors like that would see a lot more interest. But I think a lot of these are going to be more limited to the metro areas in terms of you know, really being able to sustain footfalls in the later hours in a manner which is still going to be profitable and viable.
All right, all right. Mr. Khattar, just hang in there. I'm going to come back to you in just a bit. Mr. Srikhande, I'm given to understand my audio is finally reaching you. And if indeed it is, I must get a question out of my way very quickly. Can we get Mr. Govind Srikhande back on air, please? One-on-one with us right here on ET Now. I want to understand the impact that you think this is going to have on the consumption pattern in India, the enabling policy, particularly on retail, so to say.
He's asking me on question. Very clear on the questions because the sound clarity is not good. But let me at least tell you the two good news is the way we interpret it. So number one is the pay commission hike impacting almost 1 crore employees should directly benefit the retail sector across all categories, whether it's durable, fashion, lifestyle, all of them. And I believe it is a fantastic step for consumption and should definitely boost the balance part of this year very, very well. Number two, on the retail model policy, I believe again it is a great step forward because all of us as retailers have to apply for multiple permissions at multiple points of time. Some of them are state, some of them are central, and again within state and central, multiple agencies operate that. So the retail model policy is a suggestion from RAI, really wanting to ensure that all policies like this fall under one umbrella and become easy for retailers to operate, easy to apply for, and we don't have to really struggle. So it will add tremendous amount of efficiency for the retailers and at the same time open up multiple opportunities for consumers as well as for employees to get more jobs as well.
But that's exactly my question. Obviously this move is aimed at not just boosting consumption but also job creation. Mr. Srikhande, what kind of job creation do you expect the industry to come up with as far as this enabling policy is concerned?
So if you really look at it, if you understand the GDP ratio versus the retail employment, retail is a big contributor to the entire retail GDP, to the overall GDP of the country. So if the GDP runs faster, and what we are currently hearing is that the new policies, especially the pay commission impact, is supposed to be about 0.7% of the GDP, it will be a multiplier effect of that. And same way with the retail model policy, we should see another impact. So I believe that yes, there can be an impact between 50 to 80 basis point higher level, which can directly result into boosting up of consumption as well as on employment.
Mr. Srikhande, I know you have a meeting to go to, and so I'm going to wrap this up before I go across to Mr. Amit Jatia, who's been waiting very patiently. And Amit, I'm going to be back with you in just a bit. But Mr. Srikhande, I have a quick question to ask of you as far as the retail pie itself is concerned. The whole Model Act, what parts of the pie do you think get a greater fillip than the others?
What part of the retail policy will? Can you repeat it, please?
What part of the retail pie or the retail sectors, which industries do you see getting the most fillip with this policy in action now?
My understanding from what you're asking me is which sector amongst retail will benefit. So my guess is, my answer would be that all sectors of retail should be helped by this policy because it cuts across hotels, malls, retail, everybody.
Fair point, sir. I have a very quick question to ask you because this is a model act and it will eventually be up to the state governments to implement them. We hope that the progressive ones will have 24/7 malls and retail chains and the rest will perhaps follow suit. But is that the problem? The hurdle will perhaps be at the state level. The centre has given a very progressive model act. Mr. Srikhande.
Yeah, so if you are aware, 4 states have already declared their alignment with this new retail model policy, and I believe with the central guidance coming in now, many more states will align themselves, because I think every state wants boosting up of employment, every state wants more encouragement for entrepreneurs to start their entrepreneurship journey, and more retail coming into play. Definitely there will be more state tax collections at a higher level, and I think this is a great booster. So my belief is this is a fantastic step from the central government. The state government should follow that step and really take it ahead.
Mr. Srikhande, I urge you to stay with us because I have a couple of more questions for you, but I want to go across to Amit Jatia, been very patiently waiting by. And Amit, if you can finally hear me, thank you very much for being with us at ET Now. This is a big booster of sorts as far as an enabling policy is concerned. What sort of an impact do you assess this to have on consumption, or do you believe it's too incremental? India will not go out at night to eat or shop?
No, based on what I have seen in the rest of the world, and including where McDonald's does 24/7 restaurants, if you take Hong Kong, Singapore, it's a very progressive step. And I think, as Govind rightly pointed out, that it's going to be across the board positive impact. I think not only will more jobs get created, obviously there'll be better sales for retailers, and on top of that there's more revenue to the government, because as consumption goes up, that means revenue to the government as well. So I think both the moves today are very progressive from a consumption point of view, much needed in retail given the way things have been for the last couple of years.
Oh, absolutely, isn't it? But I must ask you a very quick question, Mr. Jatia, on how does this change the rules of business for people like yourselves? I mean, you know, we do not have so many 24/7 retail chains or eateries in India. How does this change business for, say, a McDonald's in India? Have you already gone back to the drawing board with your team to assess the impact of this? How many more people will you need? What are the other strategies that you're going to put in place?
Sure, we've been asking for 24/7 for the last 3 to 4 years. And I'm really happy to hear that, you know, it's a very progressive step forward. Typically, you know, food is a convenient thing. And given that modern cities operate till late, we are also an IT-enabled economy. There are BPOs that work 24/7. In fact, even the local trails in a city like Mumbai run up to 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. So the fact that now they have the opportunity to eat out, to probably shop after they have done with work, I think it's going to be a tremendous boost. From our point of view, obviously it increases jobs because we can add a shift. If we would earlier close at 11, globally there are enough 24/7 stores where we could run the store for all the way until the morning, where McDonald's offers breakfast as well. So I think 10 to 15% is what we could potentially gain in terms of employment as we add an extra shift. But of course, the dynamics have to be looked at in terms of how the model law is adopted by the state, and finally, what's the law that we have to sort of operate under. So once that becomes clear, I think in the next 6 months or so, the benefit of this policy might be more visible on the ground. But absolutely, McDonald's will look at that 24/7 delivery. So if a consumer gets in home at midnight and they want to order a meal out, then today a restaurant can now deliver to their homes as well. So I think it's very exciting, and surely we will take advantage of this new policy.
All right. Just hold your thoughts there, because you're going to be getting an order from me soon, and that's how some of us operate here in newsrooms back home at midnight, and eating out is going to help. But Mr. Srikhande, the point that your colleague Mr. Jatia was making there, which is it is going to add to yet another shift. It is going to help you hire more people. The question is, do we have enough trained hands to be hired? Because we keep lamenting the fact that a lot of India is not, employable.
I think retail is the best opportunity for people who are least, I would say, educated, because it offers opportunity right from a 10th pass to a postgraduate. So I clearly believe that employability can be improved through the various training courses that have been opened up by the government now, including under the various policies. And I'm sure Indian youth are looking forward to work at their best level with whatever opportunities they can get in. So I don't see employability as a key problem. I think it can be resolved over a 3-month to 6-month training period, and everyone can be made employable, especially in retail.
All right, everybody can be made employable in retail. At least that's the good news for your sector. But Mr. Khattar, because you've been hearing the conversation that I just had with both Mr. Jatia and Mr. Srikhande, and they both believe, just like you did earlier, that this is an exciting time for the retail industry. There will be more jobs created. We could be adding more shifts. It's going to be pro-consumer. My question to you is on the law and order situation. I know that 4 progressive states have said that they are going to enable something like this. But is it an obvious inference that women will perhaps be left out of the night shifts? We'll perhaps see them work during the day, more men during the night. How does this change life for retailers, and how much law and order situation really comes into force when you make those decisions? Mr. Khattar.
Yes, so DLF absolutely welcomes this step. We have malls in the National Capital Region, and therefore we think this will go a long way in boosting the sales at the mall level. We welcome this, but at the same time we have to work out and look at the logistics and the parameters under which we will have to operate. For us, there are 3 most important things for the consumer who comes to our malls. One is the experience that the consumer has. Second is his safety and security. And I'm saying these 3 not necessarily in that order. So we have to ensure that the experience, the safety and security, which is paramount to us, are taken care of when we have stores which are operating 24/7. The second aspect of this is that while there is a model law now, the complementary laws will also have to be worked along with this. For example, the state agencies have certain norms in terms of putting off the music at certain times. Others have liquor not to be served at other times. Third, the police bandobast that has to be there has to be geared up to ensure that people feel safe and secure. So whilst it is a great step forward and it will add to the employment, add to the consumption and add to the experience, it is the logistics that will have to be worked out. And I think over the next 6 to 8 months, these things will automatically unravel. But overall, one is quite bullish about the step which the government has taken.
All right, one is indeed bullish about the step that the government has taken, but Amit Jatia must ask you the question, and I want to bring it back to the big picture. It's all right to say it's consumption, a double delight, but consumption will happen only when you have put more money in the hands of people, and that's exactly what the government is looking to do. How significant do you believe the 7th pay panel recommendations that the government has today approved are going to be in this? Because it always starts with the public sector and then, of course, trickles down to the private sector. So my question really is that putting hands and putting more money into the pockets of consumers is going to be as important as perhaps boosting consumption by measures that we just spoke about. Mr. Jatia.
Absolutely, because without disposable income, what do you go and spend? The consumer, I think consumer sentiment is in fact even more important than anything else. And if the income level in the hands of the consumer goes up, that gives them the confidence to then go and spend and make commitments, even in fact for that matter buy a house, because they are more confident about their ability to sustain that over the next 3 to 5 years. So I think it's a great step. 1 crore employees, and with their income levels going up, I definitely think with more disposable income in the hands of the consumer is going to bode well for retail particularly.
Is definitely going to bode well for retail. Just hold your thoughts there, because I want to take this back to the big picture. And Naushad, Forbes, you did raise a point about productivity and pay really going hand in hand. I know it's another debate that we must do another day, but there are some people who have raised questions about the government's ability to manage its fiscal house or put the fiscal house in order with an outgo like this. But do you believe at one level, given the whole Brexit thing, commodity is going to stay subdued, or at least going to stay very, very benign, and that perhaps gives us the elbow room to go ahead and, it gives the government the elbow room to go ahead and increase salaries there and still have its fiscal house in order, because that is paramount, isn't it? Mr. Forbes.
Well, I think I'm not sure about the Brexit impact on this, but but certainly softness in commodity prices, particularly oil prices, will continue to help with our overall fiscal situation. In terms of the impact on the fiscal deficit, this will add to the fiscal deficit without question. I think the estimate was that it would add about 1% to the fiscal deficit, but the finance minister assured us in the budget, when he presented the budget, that the accounting for the pay award had been taken into account in his estimate of the fiscal deficit for this year. So I think he has assured us that the fiscal deficit targets will be met in spite of this pay award implementation.
Fair point indeed. But Maitri, I know you're not a big fan of this pay hike that's coming in for government employees. You will not have too many friends in the public sector, I can tell you that. But according to you, how are you assessing the entire impact, both on the finances and also on the consumption bit? I mean, the idea is to put more money into the hands of people so that they can consume more, and there are enabling policies that are being put in place to boost that sort of consumption. Maitri?
Well, it's almost a given that the moment you appoint a pay commission, the cabinet will accept the recommendations. It's basically a fait accompli. No government in the past has ever been able to reject or even modify a pay commission recommendation. So it's not surprising that the government has accepted this. The silver lining perhaps is that sometimes in the past government have upped the recommendations, and here it doesn't seem to have done that. As far as the fiscal deficit is concerned, it will definitely be impacted. The impact will be adverse. But maybe the government hopes that now that they've appointed a FRBM review committee under Mr. N.K. Singh, and that committee is likely to suggest a range rather than a number for the fiscal deficit, it has some elbow room and can perhaps afford to take on this hit. But the larger question one really needs to ask is that, is this the best use of taxpayer money? Should the government be using taxpayer money, which is scarce in our country, to pamper a section of society which is already sufficiently pampered? Or should that money be used to build roads, bridges, power plants, what have you? So I think that is a larger question that society at large must ask the government, as also its civil servants.
All right, I promise to go back to Finance Minister Jaitley as soon as he begins to speak. But very quickly, Amit Jatia, we'll let you have the last word on this. Do you believe the consumption story in India and the whole pattern that we had seen, do you believe consumption at one level had waned and this is going to spur consumption back?
See, I don't think one step alone is going to change consumption, although a bunch of progressive steps together will definitely change consumption. As I mentioned earlier, in my view, it's about the consumer sentiment. And consumer sentiment will change when all things around them start looking positive and good, where they can make firm long-term commitments in buying homes or buying cars or whatever else they need to. Obviously, everything has to be done in prudence, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. So I think collectively, what I've been seeing in the recent past is a lot of things coming through, but another big move would be GST. And,
Right.
And if all these bunch of things come together, definitely I think the consumption would start looking better.
I'm sorry. Amit, thank you very much for that, but the finance minister is indeed speaking and we need to go across to that, please.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.